Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thank you so much for tuning in here on Tuesday, February 25th. Sun's shining. It's a rainy morning, but the sun is shining here in Duval County. It's been a busy couple days for the Jaguars. Had their big introductory press conference for new general manager James Gladstone yesterday. Game on. And traveled to Indy yesterday. And had a press conference with Liam Cohen at 11 o'clock this morning. And then James Gladstone had his second press conference in consecutive days after becoming the Jaguars general manager last Friday night. So it's been a busy week, and it will continue to be a busy week for the Jaguars. And it's a busy week around the NFL when it comes to news, when it comes to, coaches, front office people getting together, talking, chattering, rumor mill. You have on-field work at the combine. You have medical work at the combine. You have interviews at the combine. It's about as busy as it gets in the NFL this week in Indianapolis. And we got some interesting news earlier today. Jevon Holland, the Miami Dolphins are going to let him test free agency. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Jevon Holland, this is a guy who really, over the last 4 years since he's been in the NFL, has been one of the best safeties in the game, bar none. And last year was probably not his best overall year. There were some uncharacteristic mistakes, a little bit more than usual. I don't think that it was the down year that some have kind of posited it as. I still think he was a very effective player last year overall. And Jevon Holland came from Oregon. I was a big fan of him in the draft, by the way. And he came from Oregon. Second round pick by the Miami Dolphins, who they were big fans of him as well. I had him right in that range, and he has hit in a big way. And he's 24.9 years old, right? About to be 25. Jevon Holland, when you talk about what he brings as a safety, you start with his athletic profile. And the reason you're so interested in a safety for the Jacksonville Jaguars is because Darnell Savage has not worked out. Still going to be on the roster this year, but has not worked out. Andre Cisco, set to be a free agent, coming off his worst year as a pro. Antonio Johnson has not worked out to this point. Beyond that, yes, you have Andrew Wingard and Daniel Thomas, but really their roles should be backups. Their roles should be core special teamers. I know Andrew Wingard's not going to want to hear that, but that's the reality of the matter, right? So the Jaguars need safety help. They need safety help in a big way. They have a lot of cap space and cap flexibility to create even more space than they currently have, $38 million, according to overthecap.com. So you look at Jevon Holland. Could he be the answer for the Jaguars? Well, he's 6'1", 207 pounds. These are his combine numbers coming in here. He ran a 4.47 40-yard dash, which at safety, that's pretty darn fast, especially at over 200 pounds. Like, he's got the athleticism you're looking for. He's got the juice you're looking for and the strength. Put up 19 bench press reps with having 46 percentile arm length. So it's not like he's just this short-armed king that's able to put up a bunch of bench press rep numbers because he's got short arms, makes it easier. No, he's strong, he's fast, he's athletic. And more importantly, I think he sees the game really well. I think he communicates at a high level. I think when you look at Jevon Holland on the football field for the Miami Dolphins the last 4 years, he's dealt with some different defensive schemes. There's no doubt about that. He's had a lot of different guys calling defense for him, and he's done a great job. I think versatility is something that stands out consistently when you put on the tape with Jevon Holland. He can play single high. He can be your free safety, middle of the field. If you're playing cover 1, cover 3, he can be your center fielder. I think that's great because you still see a lot of cover 3 in the NFL. Even like teams that do not run a ton of cover 3 still run some cover 3. It's the most common defense in the NFL, coverage-wise. Certainly comfortable in a 2-high shell as a split zone guy back there. Comfortable in the box as well. Like I said, he's strong, he's physical, he's fast, he can fly to the football. Every play you see him communicating with the guys around him. And I think you see a good amount of fluidity to cover in single coverage against backs and tight ends coming out of the backs coming out of the backfield, tight ends, whether they're in the slot or on the line. I think he can cover some slot guys as well in man coverage. But I think his versatility and his zone eyes, I think he understands, based on what I've seen on tape, he understands zone concepts really well. And that's not like a blanket term. Like, I've seen him execute a lot of different types of assignments in Miami's defense. Just looking back at last year, which again was, according to a lot of folks, a down year for Jevon Holland, he still looks like he understands the defense and how offenses are trying to attack it to a T. There's not these blown coverages, right? You just don't see a lot of that. And he missed a few more tackles than was probably up to his standard last year. But overall, throughout his career, low missed tackle rate for a safety who can fly downhill and hit, tackle at a high level, play the run at a high level, and cover at a high level. I think he's a damn good football player. And now, should the Jaguars pursue him? I think they absolutely have a need at safety. They also have pretty big connection on the defensive side of the ball with Jevon Holland. We're going to talk about that. First, got to remind you all about Underdog Fantasy. This basketball season, when your favorite star scores buckets, we are alley-ooping you an opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward. Signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with promo code DuvalDaily, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. Tonight, I already talked a little bit about Luka. I'm also going to be taking my guy, Paolo Banchero, to hit the higher on his point projection. Go check it out. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code DuvalDaily to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 plus, 90 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 90 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783 or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. So, getting back to Jevon Holland, as I mentioned, there's a pretty darn big connection between the Jaguars and Jevon Holland on the defensive side of the ball, and that's their defensive coordinator, Anthony Campanile, who spent several years with Jevon Holland in Miami as a defensive coach on that staff. And he was actually a holdover coach as well. He was on two different staffs there. Anthony Campanile was. And when the Jaguars hired Anthony Campanile to be their defensive coordinator, Jevon Holland took to Instagram, shared the news on his story, and said, one of the best in the business. Now, obviously, Jevon Holland is a fan of Anthony Campanile. And I would be very surprised if Anthony Campanile is not a big fan of Jevon Holland. The Jaguars have a major need at safety. The Jaguars have a connection with Jevon Holland on staff. And I know that James Gladstone has talked about this is going to be a team that is primarily built through the draft. I think that's true. But Super Bowl caliber teams, they are not built exclusively through the draft. They are not built exclusively through free agency. You have to strike both areas, and you have to hit them hard, right? If you want to be the Eagles, what did they do last year? They signed a bunch of guys that had their best years in Philly, and they drafted a bunch of guys that had incredible rookie years. That's what they've done the last couple years, and that's how they won the Super Bowl. Now, Jevon Holland, I think, is at worst a top 10 safety in the NFL. And he's going to be 25 years old. I think at best, top 5. So this is a type of guy, yes, I would be all in on signing. Not to bury the lead, but yes, I think the Jaguars should heavily pursue Jevon Holland in free agency. The Jaguars have a ton of cap space. They'll also create more cap space next year at the safety position by moving on, in all likelihood, from Darnell Savage. Now, maybe maybe they can get more out of Darnell Savage than what we've seen. And it's kind of ironic that Darnell Savage was in Green Bay. Green Bay decided to let him walk after they hired Anthony Campanile as their linebacker coach. Not the same position there, but after they hired Jeff Hafley to be defensive coordinator and Anthony Campanile as linebacker coach, and now Anthony Campanile working with Darnell Savage in Jacksonville. I don't think the Jaguars are going to keep Darnell Savage around after 2025. I could be wrong. Maybe they can get the most out of his skill set, but I wouldn't be banking on that. I would say if that happens, it happens. That's great, right? I wouldn't be banking on it, though. And when you look at safety contract numbers, pulling those up on overthecap.com, which is the number one source for salary information in the NFL. Pulling up the safety numbers. Antoine Winfield is the highest paid safety, $21 million per year. Derwin James at 19 is up next. Then Minka at 18.2. Budda Baker just got a new deal at $18 million. He's 29 years old. Xavier McKinney signed last offseason with the Packers, replacing Darnell Savage, for $16.75. That was a steal, in my opinion. Jesse Bates, a steal at $16 million. I believe with the salary cap rising that you're at least looking at $18 million per year for Javon Holland. My guess, though, because he's, again, only about to be 25 years old, and you've seen him play at a Pro Bowl level consistently throughout his career, I would guess at least second on the list of safeties. I would guess he's going to break 19. And it would not surprise me if he's the highest paid safety in football. At, $22 million per year, $1 million more than Antoine Winfield. And would I pay him that? Absolutely. I think positions like safety, center, guard, linebacker, these are areas where you can spend in free agency and also hit it in the draft later on and not break the bank. When you're going out and signing T. Higgins, if he hits free agency for $30+ million per year, that's when you're really starting to crunch the numbers on your roster. But in a world where the salary cap is rising every single year and you can sign a top 5 player at their position, top 10 player at their position, $22 million per year, that's not that bad. It's really not. And you look at the draft. Yeah, I mean, there's some guys at safety that I think are going to be studs in this draft. There are, but good luck getting them. I think Malachi Starks and Nick Emanwari probably come off the board in the first round. After that, you got Xavier Watts. You like Andrew Makuba, maybe a couple other guys a lot, but are any of those guys outside of Malachi Starks and Nick Emanwari really the same level of prospect that Jevon Holland was? Or the same level of player that he is now at only 25 years old? No, I don't think so. So yeah, I mean, if I'm looking at this free agency cycle for the Jaguars, Jevon Holland is right there after Drew Dalman for me as a top priority. And Drew Dalman's the center from Atlanta. And yeah, you could get a center in the draft, sure. There's no doubt about that. And yet Mitch Morse is a serviceable center for this year. I'm trying to, if I'm signing a free agent to a big deal, I'm trying to find guys that I think can be top 5 at their position. I think Drew Dalman and Jevon Holland can both be top 5 at their position. And they're both heading into the prime of their career. So those are the two guys I'd be prioritizing the most in free agency this year. I would also go get, a edge 3 without question. I would also go get one of these starting caliber corners without question. And those would be my big moves. I would probably sign a guard as well. I would. Depending on who hits free agency, it sounds like the Chiefs are going to try to make a big push for Trey Smith. We'll see what happens there. Mekhi Becton, Tevin Jenkins, Will Fries, who's coming off an injury. But yeah, I think you want to build through the draft, and you have 20 draft picks to do that over the next 2 years. But this needs to be a team that's pushing every single year. And the teams that push every single year are the one, from a free agency and draft standpoint, are the ones that have the opportunity to win games in January. That's what the Jaguars need to do. Love to know what y'all think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below about Jevon Holland. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.